outliving all of your siblings and your parents and obviously my Grammy. Um, I mean, is there how do you describe that? Does it weigh heavily on you?
What, my difficulties with my brother?
No, just the fact that you've outlived everyone, all the influences in your life and your wife and all of your brothers, you've outlived all of them. What is that like?
Last October, my 2 younger brothers were in this living room sitting on that couch.
Uh-huh.
The 2 of them were on that couch. I was here.
Uh-huh. Last October, wow. The 2 brothers that, passed away in the last 2 months.
Yeah.
What does it feel like now? What's what goes through your head?
Well, it happened so fast.
Uh-huh.
I at that time, I felt they were reasonably uh, okay in the head.
Mhm. Yeah.
We joked a little, and I remember saying, "Just think, Paul," who was the youngest, "when you get to be 100, Harvey will be 102 and I'll be 104." And Paul said, "Oh, no, no, you, you were going to be 3 years older than that." "Oh, no, you're right," because his birthday comes first.
Uh-huh.
So before we became 3 years older, we were 2 years older.
Interesting. Um,
Anyway, that was he was logical enough to comment that.
I, I remember you telling me for some reason this keeps turning on. Um, I remember you telling me when I was younger that the probability there's some chart and I don't remember what it's called, but it's like the probability of you living to a certain age based on your current age. And basically every year that you got older, the probability that you would live older increased by more than how much older you got. And so basically the logic would be if you kept living, you'd live forever according to that
No,
chart.
it doesn't work that way. Yeah, actually, the probability that you'll die a lesser number of
Mhm.
years
Mhm.
decrease decreases.
Mhm.
So I'm 98. The probability that I will die I think, is 6 years.
Okay. Is
Uh,
that do you are you afraid of death at this point in your life?
no,
No? You have a relationship with it?
sometimes I think about it, but uh, I, I'm persuaded that we do live after death,
Mhm.
and that spirit is an important element in our makeup. But I don't think it's exactly like most people tend to think about it in the church.
Yeah.
It's not like a person that's like we're mortal
Uh-huh.
standing out there.
Right.
It has some uh, unusual capabilities.
Mhm.
I think it's much more complex than that.
In what way?
I don't know. I just don't think it's as simple as imagining it's just like us, only dead.
Right, yeah. It's not just a second copy of us after this life. It's
Yeah, yeah,
like an elevated being.
yes, but I don't know.
Yeah. Neither do I. Um,
But I don't worry about it very much. I think in some way we exist in some kind of form,
mhm. Maybe intelligences, is that
maybe intelligences, if it's something.
Um, Grammy died in 2010,
9.
2009, so it's been 11 years, over a decade.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I've obviously never had a spouse die. And I know that it was, she had cancer and everything. And so it wasn't as if it was something sudden, but obviously you spent an entire life with her.
Yes.
Moving on and still continuing to live another 10, 11, hopefully 15, 20 years since then. What do you do to adjust after spending your entire life with someone? How do you cope with it?
Well, I spent 10 years by myself,
Mhm.
living by myself,
Mhm.
doing everything that I had to do.
Mhm.
I lived in the same house, this house.
Mhm.
I fixed my meals and tied my ties and did a lot of things that I didn't do before that she did.
Okay.
But for about 3 years before she died, I had to pretty well take care of her.
Sure.
And I can't say that was pleasant, but it was a lot better than not having her.
Oh, absolutely.
So I don't know what else to say about it. I don't have communications with her.
Right.
Some people claim communications, but I don't.
Right. I don't want to keep you too much longer. I might just click this one more time. And then for some reason it's
Hasn't
not.
gone the full length.
No, it hasn't. It for some reason keeps just going for a couple of minutes and then turning off, which is frustrating, but I don't want to keep you too much longer. I am interested, I guess, to know your perspective on, living life after the passing of a spouse. Um, what do
Well, one
you
thing I'm as I said very convinced about
uh-huh.
is that there is an aspect of life after death,
Mhm.
and in which we somehow exist.
Mhm.
But I'm skeptical that the simple picture of what it's like that we
Right.
have in the church
Right.
probably isn't right.
Right.
But I don't know what it is right.
That we might have a watered down understanding of what it really is, maybe on the right track, but
Uh, yeah, exactly. We have a picture which somehow represents
Mhm.
what it really is like, but it's quite more complicated than what we visualize.
Yeah. Um, you you obviously have a confidence. I feel that, you're going to see her again, you're going to see your brothers again, those relationships in some form, maybe not the form that we have always been taught, but in some form will exist. Um, Looking back, I guess, what do you miss most about her?
That's a good question. If I hadn't gone through that period in which she was in pain and unhappy and
Mhm.
uncomfortable,
Yeah.
that took all my attention.
Mhm.
Uh, there was a period of about 3 or 4 days at the end of her life where the machine that was keeping her alive got unplugged. I don't know if she unplugged it or it was an accident, but
Mhm.
anyway, it got unplugged. And that meant that her digestive system was turned off. She didn't no longer any water or food having to deal with it, and that was causing her the most pain. Her uh, digestive system wasn't wrapped around with cancer fibers
Mhm.
and painful. Whenever she ate, it was very painful. So when the machine turned off and fed her, she lived for about 3 days, 4 days maybe.
Mhm.
She was great.
Yeah.
She was full of life and
Huh.
enthusiastic in conversation with her children
Uh-huh.
and with me. And it was a period which my children remember fondly.
Mhm.
And then she got, what do they call it? Memory. A stroke.
Okay.
She got a stroke, which she was unable to talk anymore. And that lasted for about 2 days, 3 days maybe, and she passed away.
Okay.
But it was such a delightful time. Uh, I think it was during that period which she took off her wedding ring. Her, I had bought her an engagement ring and then a wedding ring, so there were two rings. And she had them welded together into one ring.
Uh-huh.
And she wore that all her life. Anyhow, during those 3 days, she took off the ring and gave it to Peggy,
Really?
who didn't have a engagement ring
Uh-huh.
because she thought she could use it.
That's very thoughtful.
It was a very thoughtful thing to do. And I think Peggy and appreciates it. So they all looked at that period of time that most of them were around.
Mhm. I think I've actually heard my um I think I've heard my dad talk about that. What an awesome kind of last experience with her.
Yeah,
You got to see her because you said there was about 3 years where she was suffering and more sick and needed constant care. So to have those last 3 days right before she died, where you could kind of relive
yeah.
and have that
It was
old
a very
energy.
special time. But when she got the stroke, she couldn't talk. She partially paralyzed.
Mm-hmm.
It was not a pleasant time.
Mm-hmm.